I think it's kind of on theme that two of my cats right now are wrestling outside of my room right now. That feels on brand for Agatha all along. Hello interwebs, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to my review of the latest MCU Disney Plus series, this time the 2-episode premiere of Agatha All Along. I have to say, for this series, I had almost no expectations for this show going in. A lot of us have already been talking about for a long while now the sort of weird place that the MCU is in. Deadpool and Wolverine, while I have issues with it in terms of concept and sort of the nostalgia bait elements of that film, overall was a success and a movie that I really, really enjoyed. But on the whole, MCU seems to be going through a real rough patch at the moment. And so hearing about Agatha All Along, I was sort of like, I always love witches, I always love the dark vibe, but I just haven't had a lot of confidence in Marvel lately. So I just really had zero expectations for this show going in, and I really think that honestly made me come out. My cats are fighting so hard right now. They're just off camera. But I think because of that, it made me come into the show and without having that expectational burden on it, come out of this really, really enjoying it. I think this was probably one of the strongest premieres that I've seen for a Disney Plus MCU show in quite a while, perhaps since Loki or WandaVision itself. And I think what's really doing that for me, and I'm gonna go full into spoilers in just a little bit, I'm gonna stay spoiler free for just a minute here, but I think what's really making this work for me is that, number one, it's staying small scale. I think a lot of the problems with the other Disney Plus MCU shows is that they were trying to be essentially Marvel movies, just told on a longer time frame with more episodes and just trying to keep that sort of movie-based structure, but in a TV show. And the Marvel shows that worked, namely Loki and WandaVision, outside of the finale for WandaVision, which did do the MCU kind of stylistic, big bombastic battle route, was that they understood that they were a TV show and were stylistically building off of that. And I think that this understands that. They're literally fighting at my feet right now. This feels very appropriate. These are the two cats that like to play with each other. They like to have fun. I know I'm just like, oh my god, now they're jumping on the computer. Okay, guys, you can see what he's hiding down here because they're chasing each other. Buddy, this is kind of adorable for this. Guys, I'm trying to do my job. But I think the smaller, but I think that smaller scale and understanding the structure of the show really is what makes this work. And I think the other element of this, kind of what I just alluded to there, is the fact that, like, there's no expectation on an Agatha Harkness show. It's not needed to fit into the larger MCU. It doesn't need to be this big bombastic thing. It doesn't need to tie into a bunch of other things. And as a result, it feels like it can be its own thing. And you can really feel that, like, really hard in this two episodes premiere, because, man, this show moves at a brisk pace. And I really appreciate that after so many Disney shows, after so many streaming shows that just, like, feel like every episode is, like, taking forever just to move an inch forward, if at all. The fact that, like, we're already off and gone by the end of this 2-episode premiere, and, like, we've, like, recruited the team, we've gotten Agatha out of the this is, again, full spoilers here, like, we gotten Agatha out of the hole that she was in with Wanda. We've set up some of the enemies, we set up some of the stakes, we've got the team together, we set up some mysteries, and off we go. We know what the direction of the series is going forward by the end of this. I think is frankly, this is just gonna be a wild review, everybody. Sorry, the cats are not playing nice right now. They know that it needs to be a sort of mischiefy show at the moment. Yeah, there he is. There he's running through. Let's start talking the nitty-gritty of this. The first episode of the show kind of had me intrigued, and what I liked most about it was that it felt like it was very clearly building off of WandaVision by having the parody of a TV show aspect to it, like the Scandinavian thriller vibe that was going on. I think it was making fun of, like, Mayor of Easttown, so, like, Agnes of Westview fits perfectly. And the dialogue, like, it was such a pitch perfect parody, like, right down to the opening credits, like, spelling WandaVision, like, based on a Danish show. WandaVision was spelling it with a Y in the, like, the way it would actually spell that. And then just some of the the weird dialogue that we get. It's like, man, something along the lines of is like, I'll tell you when I'm feeling better, but right now it's the girl lying dead in the ground that's got me down in the dumps. I'm badly paraphrasing it. But like the dialogue is just, it's bad in a way that's very, very funny. And it was just a really, really wonderful sort of parody. But then you get moments after a few minutes of the show, you realize like, oh, this is what it's doing. It's intentionally parodying. So when you have Aubrey Plaza coming in, and she clearly knows what's going on, and she has those lines of, you can take control if you want to. Like those little lines where it's clearly she's poking through the holes of this world that Agatha has in her mind. It just landed very, very hard. And so it felt like a natural extension of WandaVision, yet doing its own thing, kind of have a darker flair to it, and then sort of building off of where we left Agatha at the end of WandaVision. It was just a very, very smart premiere, and I think a very strong introduction, reintroduction to the character and introduction to this show. And then I was like, okay, is this going to be like kind of WandaVision where every episode's a different parody of a movie? But then by the end of the episode, we have Agatha breaking out with the teen's help, which I'm going to talk about the teen later. I'm going to save the teen for the end because I have some thoughts about the teen. But like breaking out with the help of the teen's help, and then she comes out naked, and like you just see everything that's been happening the past 3 years, where it's clearly she's just been rambling in her house, like talking like, I'm on a TV show, like just doing that, and everyone's just like, well, we took care of you and tried our best, but you seem lucid now. And she's like, what the hell, this suburban hell? Like I thought that was a perfect way to like this is who Agatha is. She's a giant asshole. She's full of herself. She's very egotistical and just has disdain for everything around her. You just instantly get the character really, really quickly that builds off of what we had already been seeing throughout the episode, yet does not like let it be lashed to that. Then we get Aubrey Plaza coming in and trying to kill Agatha. And I love this, again, this setup where we'd already built up some of the characterization for her earlier in the episode, where she's got a thing for Agatha. They have a friendship, but they at some point, but they have a relationship at some form. But obviously they hate each other, and she wants to kill Agatha. And so it was good, again, to like build that up in the parody and then sort of showcase what the actual goal is here. And you can get the sense of like, yeah, she does have a level of like hatred for Agatha, yet she does want her on her best when she kills her. Otherwise, why wouldn't she have just killed her while she was sort of in her own prison with the Darkhold, having Wanda's prison? And so I think that was just a really fun vibe. We're going to talk about this in two ways. One, Aubrey Plaza, in an interview before the show came out, said like she was told that this show was the queerest show that Marvel has ever made, and that's what she signed up for, which I'm sure is going to be the thing that everyone is going to be very normal about on the internet. No one's going to have any thoughts about that at all. It's definitely not going to be. I'm sure the outrights merchants will not have a time with that if they haven't already. But that said, the vibe was palpable. You can definitely, like, we stan a toxic relationship in media, and like, man, Aubrey Plaza and Catherine Hahn's toxic relationship energy, off the charts. Love it. Here for it. And that fits Witches, though, right? Like that, the sort of like sisterly love, like there's a very queer vibe that Witches have always had to them, either metaphorical or literal, depending on what you're looking at. And I think that that's a great pull for Agatha to be that sort of very queer, overt show. Again, I'm sure, just like The Acolyte, which in its own way had a Star Wars The Acolyte, had its own queer perspective, as well as all cops or all Jedi are bastards perspective. I'm sure everyone on the internet is going to be super normal about it, and it won't be frustrating for me to see that discourse happen at all. But I'm here on the show's terms. I am here for it. Sorry, it's going to get laden with the bullshit baggage of the internet today. But on the show's terms, love it, and I stan it, and it's fantastic. All of that was wonderful, leading to again, a good stake setter for episode 2, which is taking us into getting the band together. And I love that Agatha's trying to get the band together, like get a coven together. It's again like getting people together for a heist sort of vibe. But Agatha does not want to do it at all, and she hates it, but she's kind of stuck in a position to do so. And she's going we have our kind of MacGuffin of the road, where they want to go to the road so she can get her power back and things like that. All of that was very, very good. And I love that Agatha, as we reveal at the end of the episode, actually doesn't believe that this is going to work. She kind of was just using it as a way to manipulate people so they would blast her with her power so that she could steal it. Loved that. As like, it kind of characterizes her well. But then ultimately now it's like, they do go down the road. All of the characters that we see in the episode, we get a little taste of them. We got, like Mrs. Hart, or I guess Sharon. We have Jennifer. The cats are fighting. The girls are fighting. We got Alice, and then I forget the first one, the divination witch as well. But all of them are characterized decently well. They're not giving a ton of depth. I think Jennifer kind of gets the most. Alice sort of gets the least. But they all have legitimate, like, the show does an effective job of legitimately set up, like, why would they want the road? They all have different personalities, all have different desires, and they all are kind of bringing a different dynamic to all of this. So, like, even Alice, who probably got the least out of all of them, still has this fun thing where she was like, I'm an ex-cop. That's going to be the answer to most of the questions. And they're like, okay, got her personality. It's funny. It works. So, like, the show, just despite moving along at a brisk pace, is effectively selling me on these characters and having some fun with all of them. So, good on the show. Again, it just goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Like, this feels like a very briskly paced show. It knows what it wants to do. It is using every episode very effectively, and yet still having fun along the way. It is not just being like scene. It's like, no, let's have a little bit of joy, but let's not waste our time. And I appreciate that, especially from a streaming era show, and especially from an MCU show. So I think all of that works. The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap out the episode, two last things. One thing I'll mention before, just a frivolous thing. Loved the like weird witch monster body horror things at the end. Visuals on that were really cool and creepy for a Marvel show. Like, I watch a bunch of horror stuff, so like most of like the mainstream sort of visuals I don't really get scared by, and I wasn't scared here, but this was an effective visual for something like that. But the second most important thing I want to talk about is the teen. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of speculation about who the teen is. I've seen some stuff online. I'm not going to try and speculate too hard because, like, I am not an MCU comic book nerd. I'm more of a DC fan, so I can't really know. I think there was some speculation on spoilers that might be like Wanda's kid from the future or something like that. Like, I don't really know. We'll ultimately see. But I love some of the ways that this mystery is played into. Like, Agatha literally cannot hear him say anything, but he doesn't seem to even be aware of that fact. So that's interesting. I love that. That's a dynamic I haven't really seen, and it's a cool way to play it. The other thing too, and I'm sure people will be normal about this online too if people hear me say this. But is it just me, or is the teen giving like trans vibes to me? Because there's already an element of, like, he wants to join, go down the witch's road and get power, and he kind of wants to have a witch-coded power. So there's already an element of, like, he wants, like, a feminine-coded power. He is, like, hyper-fixated on witches. So there's, like, this very clear, like, already kind of, like, he's interested in feminine things. Not that makes him a trans person, but there's an element of, like, he wants, a witch's power in his past. Like, there's something there that I'm like curious to see if the show's gonna do anything with. Also, just his aesthetic kind of gives me that vibe too. Again, the show doesn't need to go down the path. It's not so strong. I'm like, yeah, that's a trans character, or that's definitely what they're gonna do with it. But like, I see the breadcrumbs, let's just say, and I see the coding that it could do something with. It could not, but I'm curious to see if that'll be, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, or if that's something they're gonna be picking up on as the season goes down. And honestly, you could do it interesting. You could even play it another way, as like, he's a trans man style character too, who like identifies as a man, but like still has a draw towards like witches and that side of his history. Because I know a lot of trans men who feel that way too, who are like, I am a man, and yet I don't want to toss away all the stuff that I fought for when I was seen as a woman, and drawing strength from that as well. But you could also do the trans woman vibe, as well as like wanting to be a witch when no one will let him be seen as a witch. So like, there's two different ways you could take that character, and I think either one would be interesting. Or it could just all be left encoded or an interpretation, or they could go a different direction. But just something I was like, I see some breadcrumbs here, especially since they said this is the queerest MCU show ever. Certainly not outside the realm of possibility. I think that's everything that I want to talk about. I really enjoyed this. I think this is a really strong premiere. Let's see if the MCU, if that'll hold, because one of the other major problems of the MCU is that TV shows tend to fall downhill the longer that they go on for the most part. So maybe this is just a strong premiere and it will fall off. But so far, this is great. I would put this in the top tier of MCU TV show premieres. So what did you think about it? I'd love to hear all your thoughts in the comments below. The cats have decided to stop fighting now, so that's good. And I wish you all, my friends, a live long and prosper.